at John F. Kennedy International Airport, the crowd was a vibrant, chaotic mix of people that, at a single glance, you knew weren't all locals. It made it hard to tell if this was New York City or some international hub in the heart of America. The airport was teeming with foreigners who had flown in from every corner of the globe. Among them, what particularly drew the eye was the large number of foreign women. It was said that women from countries where there was a shortage of men were booking flights months in advance to come to the United States, hoping to marry American men. The heroine of our story today had come here for that very reason, but only to object to such a cross-national marriage. However, after actually arriving in America, this young woman's perspective would change by 180 degrees. From having been vehemently against marrying an American man, she would eventually settle down in this very country. Let's listen to her story. Hello, my name is Katia Kolesko. I am a 30-year-old bank manager from Minsk, Belarus. People often say I'm too pragmatic, too grounded in reality, and they wouldn't be wrong. After my father passed away 10 years ago, I started taking care of my mother and my frail younger sister. I chose responsibility over dreams, stability over adventure. Every decision in my life was for my family. And the story I'm about to tell you now changed my life completely. Please listen to the end. Winter in Minsk always felt long. One evening, finishing up my work at the bank, I looked out the window and saw snow gently falling. A video call notification from Arina popped up on my computer screen. My sister's bright smile always made me happy, but today her smile seemed even brighter than usual. Sister, I have something important to tell you, Arina shouted excitedly through the screen. I sipped my coffee, smiled, and asked, "What is it that has you so excited? Did you get a promotion?" Arina on the screen went quiet for a moment, then took a deep breath. "I'm getting married. Mike and I have decided to get married." In that instant, the coffee cup slipped from my hand. "What?" I quickly grabbed the tissue to wipe up the spill, doubting my own ears. "Married? You've only known each other for 8 months. Arina's gaze was firm. "Sister, I know it's short, but Mike is the most sincere, gentlest person I've ever met. His family treats me like their own daughter." My mind was in a whirl. My sister had been in the United States as an exchange student for 3 years. When she graduated and decided to work and settle there, I had accepted it. When I heard she had a boyfriend, I thought it was just a young woman's exploration of love. But now, getting married? It was too fast. "Arina, isn't this too rushed? How well do you really know him? America and our culture are so different." My sister's expression changed. "Sister, do you still see me as a child? Mike's family is genuinely good. They respect me sincerely and have even been helping me with my English. He's more family-oriented and responsible than many men in Belarus." An image of my friend, Masha, flashed in my mind. Masha had married an Italian man through an international dating website 2 years ago. At first, it sounded like a fairy tale, a trip to Europe, a new life in a wealthy country, a beautiful dream. But 6 months after the wedding, she became a different person. Her husband was abusive, treating her like a beautiful collectible he'd acquired from Eastern Europe. Today, Masha suffers from depression and is still receiving psychiatric treatment. Arina, do you remember the story I told you about Masha? Do you remember how much she suffered? International marriages can be riskier than you think. My sister sighed. "Sister, not every international marriage is like Masha's. That was because the man was bad. Mike is different. And in America, many Belarusian women are living happily." The unease in my heart grew stronger. In Belarus, the number of men of marriageable age was significantly lower than women. Many men had gone abroad to find work. Of those who remained, a not insignificant number were alcoholics or unemployed. In this situation, Eastern European women like us were often seen as commodities in the international marriage market. Arena, please reconsider. Marriage is a life-altering decision. Are you sure Mike is really a good person? Can you really live in the United States forever? Tears welled up in Arena's eyes. I thought you would understand me. You've always supported me. Why are you trying to block my happiness now? The conversation grew more intense, more emotional. I thought I was acting for my sister's happiness, but Arena felt I was trying to control her life. Arena, I'm not trying to control you. I'm just worried. How many women have you seen go abroad for a better life only to come back broken? Sister, the situation is completely different. Mike isn't like that. Why don't you trust me? After a fierce argument, Arena hung up in tears. I let out a heavy sigh, holding my head in my hands. Was this tough approach really the best way? My sister had always been my pillar, a precious person I had to protect. That night, when I went home to prepare dinner, a scream came from my mother's room. I rushed in to find her clutching her chest, collapsed on the floor. A heart attack. The moments calling the ambulance and rushing to the hospital felt like the longest, most terrifying of my life. Thankfully, my mother's condition stabilized once we reached the hospital. Seeing her pale face in the patient room broke my heart. For 10 years after my father's death, Arena and I had lived for her. I had given up my dream of going to university to work at the bank, working day and night just for my sister's education. After the nurse left, leaving just the two of us, my mother spoke in a weak voice. Katya, that fight you had, it startled me. I was shocked. Mom, it's all my fault. I did this to you. My mother shook her head gently. It's my fault. I've put too much of a burden on you, especially making you take on the role of a parent. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Mom, don't say that. I just did what I could for our family. My mother's pale hand held mine. Katya, about Arena's marriage. I know why you're worried, but sometimes it's better to see things with your own eyes, to judge for yourself. I mulled over my mother's words. It was my love and concern for my sister getting in the way of her happiness. Judging from phone calls, America was too far away for me to understand. Maybe I should go and see for myself. My mother's eyes sparkled. Good, you've sacrificed so much for us. This time, for your sister and for yourself, go experience something new. Go and see. After 2 more days in the hospital, my mother's condition was stable enough to go home and recuperate. I requested a vacation from the bank. My colleague, Liza, agreed to look after my mother while I was away. It was the first time in 12 years I had left my family. The night before flying to New York, I sent a short text to Arena. Arriving at JFK. We'll talk about the wedding then. I'm sorry. My sister replied immediately. Her message transformed with joy, but I was still uneasy. My biggest worry was, what if my sister was really being deceived? How could I help her? And if it was a truly happy relationship, how could I accept how narrow-minded I had been all along? Boarding the plane, my heart was a mix of worry, a desire to help my sister, and curiosity about a new world. Looking out the window, watching Minsk grow smaller, I thought that perhaps this journey would teach not only my sister something, but me as well. After a 12-hour flight, I finally stepped into John F. Kennedy International Airport. Surrounded by unfamiliar English signs and bustling crowds hurrying past, I took a deep breath. The real journey had just begun. JFK was much larger and cleaner than I had imagined. The long flight had left me exhausted, but the sight of the orderly airport and its efficient systems made me feel a sense of admiration. After presenting my passport at immigration, the officer asked a few simple questions in English. The whole process was surprisingly quick. This is a different world, I mumbled to myself. I looked for the entrance to the air train. Arena had an important meeting today and couldn't pick me up herself. She had explained the route in detail and told me how to buy a metro card. saying it could be used for all types of public transport. At first, I was skeptical, but as I rode the air train and then the subway into the city, the view outside the window shattered my preconceptions one by one. The city skyline was filled with skyscrapers, with green patches of parks interspersed, and the Hudson River shimmering in the sunlight. Everything looked modern and sophisticated. Upon reaching my transfer station, the process of switching to another subway line surprised me. All the signs, in addition to English, had translations in Spanish, Chinese, and other languages. Digital information displays installed throughout the station showed the real-time arrival of the next train. In Minsk, this was unimaginable. To get to Astoria, where Arina lived, I got on the N train. It was after rush hour, so the subway car was relatively empty, but there were still many people quietly looking at their smartphones. The atmosphere, where everyone respected each other's personal space, was both novel and comfortable. Just then, a drunk, middle-aged man stumbled onto the train. He sat across from me, reeking of alcohol, his drunken gaze fixed on me. Suddenly, he started trying to talk to me in broken English. "Where you from? Russia? Ukraine?" I answered curtly, "Belarus," trying to minimize the conversation. However, the man continued talking and slowly moved closer. "Belarus, famous for beautiful women. You are beautiful too. Why you come to America? Got a boyfriend?" Fear washed over me. In a foreign country, I didn't know how to handle this situation. The other passengers seemed to notice, showing uneasy expressions but not intervening directly. I tried to change seats, but the man grabbed my arm. "Where you going? Let's talk. Want a drink?" At that moment, from the other end of the car, a nifty officer in uniform walked over swiftly. Surprisingly, I hadn't even called for help, but he had sensed the situation. "Sir, you're disturbing another passenger. Please return to your seat," the officer said with a firm but gentle demeanor. The drunk man got more agitated, raising his voice. "What? I'm just talking to a foreign friend." As the situation escalated, the officer quickly reported it over his radio. To my surprise, when we reached the next station, 2 more police officers were waiting on the platform. How was this possible? I was deeply stunned. One of the officers calmly approached the drunk man and handled the situation. He was tall, well-dressed, with a deep voice. When the drunk man continued to resist, he controlled the situation with a firm but not aggressive manner. "Sir, you're very drunk right now. We're going to help you get home. Please cooperate." As his partner escorted the drunk man away, the officer who first intervened walked over to me. He asked in fluent English, "Are you all right? Are you injured in any way?" I shook my head. "I'm fine, thank you. Just surprised by your quick response." He smiled and explained, "There are security cameras throughout the subway system. The control center monitors them in real time. When an uncomfortable situation arises, we respond immediately." His name was Dan. He asked where I was going and offered to help me get to my destination safely. At first, I wanted to refuse, but I was afraid of getting lost in this unfamiliar city, so I accepted his offer. After getting off the subway, Dan gave me a brief overview of American culture and etiquette. His calm voice and attentive manner gradually put me at ease. "You're from Belarus, right? From Minsk?" Dan asked. "Yes, that's right," I replied, surprised. He smiled and said, "Actually, my friend, Mike, is about to marry a girl from Belarus. He's mentioned her hometown is Minsk." In that instant, I stopped. "Is her name Arina?" Dan's eyes widened. "Yes. How did you know? Are you her sister?" Mike told me Arina's sister was coming today. This coincidence left me speechless. Dan was Mike's best friend, and Arina had planned to introduce me to both of them tonight. Was it fate or just a coincidence? Under Dan's guidance, we arrived at Arina's apartment. When my sister saw me, she ran and hugged me tightly. After hearing the story of how I met Dan, she had a look of disbelief on her face. "Oh sister, what a way to meet him. I was planning to introduce you too." Arina's voice was full of joy and surprise. Not long after, Mike arrived. He looked even kinder than I had imagined, giving off a good-natured feeling. He greeted me politely, and when we shook hands, his sincere smile unconsciously lowered my guard. "Katya, it's so good to finally meet you. Arina talks about her sister all the time. My parents have invited everyone over for dinner tonight. Would that be okay?" I hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. Since I was here, meeting Mike's family was the purpose of my trip. Mike's family lived in a nice house in Queens. When the door opened, a warm welcome and the aroma of food wafted out. Mike's mother treated me like her own daughter. Arina was shown genuine affection. On the table was a variety of classic American dishes: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and apple pie. These were dishes I had never seen before, but upon tasting them, I was captivated by the fresh, comforting flavors. During dinner, Mike's father spoke carefully. "Katya, you must have come here with some concerns. We truly consider Arina a part of our family. Mike is a responsible young man. We hope you can trust him." Hearing that, I put down my fork and observed their faces carefully. What I felt wasn't pretense or fabrication, but sincerity. The suspicion in my heart began to melt away. After dinner, we went for a walk in a nearby park. Even though it was late, many people were still exercising or chatting. What was particularly interesting was that some women were walking alone. In Belarus, it would be too dangerous for a woman to be out alone at this time, I said. Mike nodded. "New York isn't perfect, but in terms of safety, it's actually one of the top cities in the world." Looking at the park's nighttime scenery glittering under the sky, I grew more confused. This place was completely different from what I had expected. Efficient public transport, clean streets, a safe environment. Most importantly, Mike and his family truly loved and cherished Arina. But a question still lingered in my heart. Was I really supposed to leave my sister in this foreign country forever? Thinking of my mother in Belarus, our home, and all the memories we shared with Arina, I felt a sense of unease. On the way back to the hotel where I was staying, Dan was waiting for me. He had gotten off his shift. He walked with me naturally, like an old friend. He was an easy conversationalist, making me feel comfortable. "So, besides the first impression, is America what you expected?" he asked. I answered honestly, much better than I expected, but I'm still not entirely at ease. Dan smiled understandingly. "Of course, this is about your family. I can show you around New York for the next few days so you can understand the country better." Saying goodbye in the hotel lobby, I replayed the day's experiences. America was different from the world I knew. What would my life and Arina's be like in the future? At that moment, I couldn't imagine. After a week in New York, I gradually adapted to the rhythm of life here. Staying at Arina's apartment, I closely observed her daily life. Every morning, my sister left for work full of energy and confidence. Hearing her speak with colleagues on the phone in English, I couldn't help but admire her. The shy, quiet sister I knew seemed to have disappeared. Here, she had transformed into a new person. "Sister, Dan is taking us to see the Statue of Liberty and Central Park today. He called yesterday," Arina said during breakfast. Hearing Dan's name, my heart fluttered inexplicably. Since the subway incident, he had visited us frequently, showing us around the city. His intelligent conversation and attentive manner impressed me every time. As a police officer, he had a high sense of responsibility, but at the same time, a gentleness and a sense of humor. At the appointed time, Dan arrived punctually. I had been waiting for him. Today was his day off. His usual neat uniform was replaced with casual but appropriate clothes. I found myself studying him closely. "Today you will experience some American history," Dan said with a smile. The ferry ride to the Statue of Liberty was breathtaking, set against the bustling backdrop of the New York harbor. The immense green statue stood in stark contrast to the modern skyscrapers surrounding it. Dan explained the history of the statue and stories of immigration to America in detail. "This is a symbol of freedom and hope for millions," he said. His explanation wasn't just a tour guide script, it was filled with love and understanding for his country's history. Listening to him, it occurred to me how little I knew about the history of Belarus. Maybe I had focused too much on the problems of daily life and overlooked the rich culture and history of my own country. During lunch, we tasted classic New York street food from a food truck near Central Park. Amid the gentle buzz of the city, our conversation deepened. "Katya, what do you do in Belarus?" Dan asked. "I'm a manager at the bank in the personal loans department," I answered. "That's a very important position. Do you like your job?" This question made me think. Did I like my job? I realized I had never asked myself that question. After my father's death, I had to find a job simply out of responsibility to support my family. I couldn't say I liked it. "It's more like something I have to do," I replied honestly. Dan's gaze softened. "And what did you dream of doing?" "I wanted to be a doctor." As I said this, my voice trembled. Before my father died, I was preparing for medical school entrance exams, but reality didn't allow it. In that moment, long-suppressed emotions surged up. I had never lived for my own dreams, always choosing family, always sacrificing for others. This was my whole life. On the bus heading downtown, Dan shared his own story. He wanted to be a writer, but on his family's advice, he became a police officer. But he never stopped writing, never gave up his dream of publishing a novel. Life sometimes doesn't go as planned, but that doesn't mean we have to give up on our dreams entirely. His words deeply moved me. Visiting the vast expanse of Central Park, I thought of our small apartment in Minsk. In that cramped, oppressive space, I lived the same day over and over, but in just 1 week in New York, I had experienced more than in the past 10 years. At dusk, we went to the top of One World Observatory. The view of the city under the setting sun was breathtaking. "What's that?" I wondered, pointing to a couple taking a selfie against the skyline. "That's just a place where people feel connected, writing their stories against the backdrop of the city. It symbolizes a promise of a future together," Dan explained. I unconsciously reached out my hand. This place held someone's love and promises. I didn't know why, but it made me feel a little envious. In my life, there was never time or energy to pursue love. Practical problems always came first. Emotions were a luxury. "When you go back to Belarus, what are your plans?" Dan's question interrupted my thoughts. "When I go back," I started, but then stopped. "When I went back, nothing would be different. I would go back to the bank, back to those suffocating days. It seemed there was no other choice. I would just have to continue living the same way." Coming down from the tower, we sat in a nearby coffee shop. Dan's expression turned serious. "Katya, actually, from the first time I saw you, I was drawn to you." This unexpected confession made my heart race. Dan continued, "I heard from Arena how much you've sacrificed for your family, but I think sometimes we have to think about our own happiness too." I didn't know how to respond and remain silent. This kind of emotion, this situation, was too new for me. Looking into his eyes, I could feel his sincerity. As I was thinking about how to answer, my cell phone rang. It was a call from Liza, the friend looking after my mother in Belarus. Her voice was trembling. "Katya, your mother's condition has worsened. She's been hospitalized again." My whole body went cold. The news of my mother's deteriorating health made my mind go blank. The thought that I had to return immediately shot through my head. I understand. I'll be back as soon as I can. After hanging up, I looked at Dan, at a loss for words. What happened? He asked with concern. My mother. She's collapsed. She's in the hospital. It's serious. My voice shook. Dan immediately stood up. He didn't press for an answer to his confession. No matter what, I'll help you in any way I can. Let's go look at flights. On the way back to the hotel, Dan was by my side the whole time. While explaining the situation to Arena and booking a flight, he gave me immense support. His calmness and practical help were what kept me from falling apart. That night, saying goodbye in the lobby, Dan's expression was serious. Whatever you decide, I will support you. If you want to come back, I'll be waiting for you. Hearing that, tears welled up. In Belarus, I had never experienced this feeling before. Someone who understood my situation, who offered unconditional support. It brought me a comfort I had never known. Back in my room packing, I was lost in a mix of complex emotions. Worry for my mother, consideration of my sister's marriage, and my feelings for Dan were all tangled together. Looking at the New York skyline through the window, I realized that in this short time, I had started to think about myself, about my own life. The experiences here were changing me. The next morning, Arina saw me off at the airport. At the departure hall, my sister hugged me tightly. Sister, what do you think about my marriage to Mike? Arina asked carefully. I thought for a moment, then answered sincerely. At first, I was really worried, but now, if you're happy, I'm happy too. Mike seems like a good person. Tears welled up in Arina's eyes. Thank you so much. Before I boarded, Dan also arrived at the airport. In his hand was a small gift box. This is some American herbal tea for your mother. They say it's good for her health, he said, a little shyly. In that moment, I knew for sure I had special feelings for this man, even though I didn't know if I would ever come back, or if this would be our final goodbye. One thing was clear. This short trip to America had changed my life forever. As the plane took off, I looked out the window at the shrinking New York skyline. What awaited me were important decisions. The responsibility of caring for my mother, accepting my sister's marriage, and perhaps gathering the courage for my own happiness. The journey back to Belarus, my mood was much lighter than when I had arrived. Although I was worried about my mother's health, deep down a bold idea was forming. Maybe I could consider moving to the United States to live. This thought was initially weak, but as the plane approached Minsk, it gradually became clearer. The air in Minsk was colder and heavier than in New York. After another long flight, I was back on my native soil. I rushed straight to the hospital. Seeing my mother's pale face in the room, my heart ached. Although she held my hand and smiled faintly, I could read a deeper fatigue in her eyes. Katya, you're back. How is Arina? My mother's voice was very soft. She's doing well, Mom. Don't worry, I said, holding her hand tightly. After speaking with the attending physician, the situation became clear. My mother's heart function was progressively worsening. She needed specialized treatment. The limitations of the Belarusian medical system were the doctor's frank assessment. That night, sitting in a chair in the hospital room, watching my mother's sleeping form, I began to think. For the week in New York replayed in my head. The conversations with Dan, the warmth of Mike's family, and all the possibilities I had seen. An idea emerged. Perhaps this was a sign from fate. For my mother's treatment, and for me to start a new life, we should move to the United States. And the next morning, my mother's condition improved slightly, and the doctor decided she could go home. After we returned, I gathered my courage and carefully explained my idea to my mother. Mom, I want to talk to you about America. I sat beside her on the bed. America is completely different from what I thought. Their medical system is among the best in the world. Mike is a good person, I continued, As my mother listened quietly, taking a deep breath, I got to the main point. Considering your heart condition, I think getting treatment in America would be a better option. I think our whole family should move to the United States. My mother's eyes widened in surprise. Katia, what are you saying? Our home, your job, everything is here. It was the reaction I expected, but this time I was more confident. Mom, I know, but sometimes we need to make a change. In America, you can get better treatment. I can apply for a job at an international financial institution. Most importantly, we can all be together with Arina. My mother was silent for a moment, looking out the window. Then she slowly spoke. Are you sure you're not just thinking about your sister? I shook my head. No, to be honest, it's for myself too. In America, for the first time, I saw the possibility of a different life. I feel like that might be a place where I can be happy. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dan asking about my mother's health. Attached was information about an international financial institution in New York that was recruiting foreign talent. He said he could recommend my resume. This coincidental timing made me feel the power of fate. I showed the message to my mother and explained that I might have a new job opportunity. Maybe we should give it a try. Observing my mother's medical condition over the next few days, I began to plan concretely. With the help of Dan and Arina, I gathered information about the American medical system and residency information for foreigners, especially medical plans for international patients and long-term residency visas. After a week, my mother's attitude changed. She gradually started paying attention to the information I collect. This hospital is world-renowned for treating heart disease, she murmured, while looking at a hospital brochure, sipping the herbal tea from New York. My mother and I talked through the night. Her worries weren't just about the fear of leaving a familiar environment, but also the fear that I would once again sacrifice my own life for the family. Katia, I don't want you to give up your life again because of me, she asked. I replied from the heart, this time is different. This isn't giving up my life, but choosing a new one. Maybe the person who is important to me is also there. A spark of understanding shone in my mother's eyes. Is it that police officer? Then I blushed and nodded in confirmation. My mother laughed, a happy laugh I hadn't heard in a long time. Then go for it, my child. If you are happy, then I will be happy too. After the decision was made, everything moved quickly. I submitted my resignation to the bank. The international financial institution Dan recommended received my resume, and surprisingly, I was given an interview opportunity. They valued my experience in the Belarusian and Eastern European markets. On the day of the interview, I sat nervously. Although using unfamiliar English, I tried my best to express my understanding and enthusiasm for the United States. The good news came 2 weeks later. I was hired as the Eastern European business manager for the New York branch. The day before leaving for America with my mother, I spoke with Arina. My sister was so excited she was crying. Sister, I can't believe we're going to be together again. A happy smile spread across Arina's face. Yes, and now I can be part of your wedding. I can help with the preparations, I replied. On the day of the flight, the sadness of leaving Minsk couldn't compare to the anticipation of a new beginning. Holding my mother's hand tightly, looking out the window, I felt that this decision would be the turning point of my life. Upon arriving in New York, Arina, Mike, and Dan were waiting for us at the airport. The moment I saw Dan again, my heart beat as fast as when we first met. His warm smile welcomed my return. My mother's treatment began immediately. A top cardiologist at New York Presbyterian Hospital took charge of her case. At first, the unfamiliar environment and language caused some discomfort, but the hospital's International Patient Support Center provided translation services, greatly reducing the difficulties. Surprisingly, my mother adapted to life in New York faster than I did. In the park near the hospital, she made friends with other elderly Russian-speaking residents. Every morning, they exercised together. The doctors were also pleased with the improvement in her condition. I also gradually adapted to my new work environment. Although I initially faced difficulties due to language and cultural differences, the consideration of my colleagues and my own efforts helped me overcome those obstacles one by one, especially when handling financial transactions for Belarus and other Eastern European countries. I felt that my experience and knowledge were truly valued. My relationship with Dan also deepened naturally. Every weekend, we would explore hidden gems in New York together. Sometimes we would read his writing together. He taught me English, and I taught him a few words of Russian. In the process of learning each other's culture and language, our hearts grew closer. 6 months after living in New York, Arina and Mike's wedding took place. It was a beautiful blend of American traditions with Western style. My mother and I sat in the front row, watching the happy bride. Arina, in a beautiful white wedding dress, walked elegantly down the aisle like a princess from a fairy tale. "My little girl is so beautiful," my mother said, through tears. Seeing my mother's greatly improved condition, I was once again confident that this decision was the right one. Looking around the wedding, the place was now filled with people who had become our new family. Mike's parents, their friends, and Dan. A few months ago, I would have never imagined this. During the reception, Dan quietly came to me. He gently took my hand and led me to the garden. Under the night sky, he handed me a small box. Inside was a beautiful ring. "This isn't a proposal yet. It's just a promise. I want to spend more time with you." Dan's voice was warm and sincere. I was moved to tears. In this foreign land, I had received an unexpected gift: my mother's health, my sister's happiness, and the love of my own life. Putting on the ring, I felt true happiness for the first time. Choosing my own happiness could be a blessing for the whole family. Sacrifice was no longer the only way to show love. The courage to seek one's own happiness was another form of love. Holding hands tightly, I knew without a doubt America was no longer a foreign land. 6 months later, one morning, as I was getting ready for work, I received a text from Dan. "Are you free tonight? There's something important I want to talk about." This short message made my heart race. My relationship with Dan had developed steadily over the past few months, but he had never formally asked me to talk like this before. "Of course, I'm free. Is everything okay?" I replied, a sense of anxious anticipation in my heart. "Nothing serious, just want to talk about the future. Let's meet at 7 p.m. at that restaurant by the Hudson River." All day, my mind was elsewhere. My colleagues noticed my distraction and even joked, asking if I was about to get a ring. Although I dismissed it with a smile, deep down, I wished for that possibility. Dan and I had known each other for almost a year. His kindness, intelligence, and passion for life had completely captivated me. With him, I found a sense of security and belonging I had never felt before. More importantly, he encouraged me to pursue my own dream. I had started volunteering at a medical-related nonprofit. Reconnecting with the medical dream, I was forced to abandon as a youth. Dan and I would explore every corner of New York together, from the bustling markets to the quiet parks. Each trip revealed new facets of this city to me. Over time, America was no longer a foreign land, but truly my home. After work, I went home to change. My mother immediately saw my mood. She was in much better health now than when she was in Belarus, her cheeks rosy and full of life. "You seem particularly excited today," my mother smiled, saying she had a date with Dan. I nodded shyly. "He said he has something important to talk about." My mother winked. "I have a good guess what it island remember. No matter what, you must listen to your heart." Wearing a carefully chosen dress, I arrived at the restaurant at 7 p.m. sharp. Dan was already there, wearing a formal suit I had never seen before, looking exceptionally handsome. On the table was a single red rose and a small velvet box. Seeing the box, my heart nearly stopped. Was this really a proposal? You look beautiful. Dan stood up and pulled out a chair for me. Thank you for coming. Dinner went smoothly. We talked about work, family, and a movie we had recently seen, but I could feel that Dan was a bit nervous. His eyes kept glancing at the small box. After dessert arrived, Dan took a deep breath and picked up the box. Katya, getting to know you has been the best thing in my life. Over this past year, I've become more and more certain that you are the one I want to spend my life with. He opened the box. Inside was a sparkling diamond ring. Will you marry me? Tears welled up in my eyes. I had been waiting for this moment, yet it seemed to have come too soon. Limitless joy flooded my heart. My lips parted, ready to say yes, when my cell phone suddenly rang. It was Arina. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, but my intuition told me this call was important. I'm so sorry. I have to take this, I said to Dan apologetically. He was understanding and nodded. Sister. Arina's voice was choked with sobs. Mom collapsed. She's at New York Presbyterian now. The doctor says it's serious. An icy chill ran down my spine. I quickly hung up. I looked at Dan, at a loss for words. What happened? He asked with concern. Oh, Mom, she collapsed. She's at the hospital. It's serious. My voice trembled. Dan immediately stood up, putting the ring back in his pocket. We're going to the hospital. Don't worry, your answer can wait. On the way to the hospital, Dan held my hand tightly, silently giving me strength. But my mind was a mess, filled with worry and guilt. My mother's recent checkups had all been normal. Why did she suddenly collapse? Had I been too selfish, neglecting her health? The lights in the hospital corridor were bright and cold. Arina and Mike were there, their expressions making my heart sink. The doctor said it's heart failure. Arina sobbed. They're trying to save her now. The next few hours were a nightmare. We sat anxiously in the waiting room. Dan was by my side the whole time, but my mind was far away. If I lost my mother, how could I face it? Wasn't this the opposite of why I brought her to America? Finally, the doctor came out, his face grave. We've temporarily stabilized her condition, but she needs a heart valve replacement surgery. Given her age and physical condition, it's a high-risk procedure. What's the success rate? I asked with a trembling voice. Around 60%, the doctor answered frankly. But without the surgery, her condition will only worsen. Looking at my mother lying in the intensive care unit bed, covered in tubes and wires, I felt like the world was spinning. This decision was too monumental, a matter of life and death. I need some time to think, I told the doctor. Then I turned to Dan. I'm sorry about tonight, he interrupted me. Don't think about that. The most important thing right now is your mother. I will always support you, no matter what you decide. On the way home, Dan offered to stay with me, but I refused. I needed to be alone to think. Lying in bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The surgery was very risky, but without it, there was no other option, and the medical expenses were a problem. Even though my job had insurance, the cost of such a major surgery exceeded the coverage limit. What hurt me more was the question deep in my heart. Was bringing my mother to America a mistake? Would she have been safer if she had stayed in Belarus? Did my selfish decision cause her harm? After a sleepless night, I went to the hospital early to see my mother. She was awake, weak but conscious. Katya, she said softly, don't worry, I've spoken with the doctor. I want to have the surgery. I held her hand. Mom, the risk is too high. Maybe we should consider other options or even go back to Belarus. My mother shook her head firmly. Every day here has been the happiest of my life. Seeing you and Arina find love, I have no other wishes. Tears stream down my cheeks. No, Mom, you will be safe. I will find a way to pay for the surgery. I won't give up. After leaving the patient room, I immediately contacted the bank for a loan, but because I had only been working in the United States for a short time, the approved amount was not enough. I even considered selling our house in Belarus, but that would take time, and my mother's condition couldn't wait. Just as I was despairing, Dan came to the hospital with unexpected news. I've spoken with Mike. He said, "We found a solution. Remember I mentioned my friend who is a cardiac surgeon? He is willing to perform the surgery and greatly reduce the cost. Also, Mike's father is on the hospital's board of directors. He will arrange for a special fund to help." I looked at him, stunned. "How is this possible? In America, we value family," Dan said gently. "Katya, you, Arina, and your mother are part of our family now. We won't let you face this alone." In that moment, I threw myself into Dan's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. This kind of unconditional love and support was something I never thought I would receive. The surgery was scheduled for a week later. During this time, I lived at the hospital to be with my mother. Dan came every day, bringing food, books, and endless support. Arina and Mike took turns visiting, ensuring my mother was never alone. The night before the surgery, after everyone had left, my mother held my hand, her eyes shining with wisdom. "Katya, no matter what the outcome is tomorrow, I want you to know that coming to America was the best decision I ever made. Seeing you and Arina find love, I have no regrets." She paused. "Dan proposed to you, didn't he?" My eyes widened. "How did you know?" My mother smiled. "A mother knows everything. Did you say yes?" I whispered softly. "Not yet. Do it." My mother said with confidence, "He is a good man. He will make you happy. You deserve to have your own life and happiness." The next day, the surgery lasted for 6 hours. It was the longest wait of my life. Dan was by my side the whole time, holding my hand, giving me strength without words. Finally, the surgeon walked out of the operating room, tired but smiling. "The surgery was a success. Your mother is a real fighter. She will recover." Hearing this news, my legs gave out. Luckily, Dan was there to catch me. Joy, relief, and gratitude overwhelmed me. That night, in a small park near the hospital, I told Dan my answer to his proposal. "My answer is yes. I will marry you." This crisis made me understand how fragile life is and how precious Love Island. A bright smile spread across his face. He took out the ring again and carefully placed it on my finger. "I promise I will do everything I can to make you happy," he said. "We will face every challenge in life together." Under the night sky, we made a promise to spend our lives together. In this moment, I finally understood. A true home is not just a place, but a feeling of belonging, a feeling of being loved and accepted. From Minsk to New York, from suspicion to acceptance, from responsibility to love, my journey was full of unexpected twists and turns, but every step led me to a better me and a better life. Under the American sun, surrounded by loved ones, I finally understood. Sometimes the greatest adventure is pursuing your own happiness, and the greatest courage is allowing yourself to be loved. After the excitement of the wedding passed, our new life gradually settled into a normal rhythm. Dan and I bought a small apartment by the Hudson River, not far from my mother's and Arina's homes. The apartment wasn't large, but it had a balcony with a view of the river. In the evenings, we could watch the glittering New York skyline. "This is my dream home," I told Dan on the day we moved in. He hugged me and said, "As long as I'm with you, anywhere is home." The first year of marriage was full of adjustments and surprises. Two people from different cultural backgrounds living together had its sweet moments and its challenges. Dan had to get used to my direct Belarusian way of expressing myself, while I had to understand the more indirect, reserved communication style of Americans. In our culture, sometimes fine can mean not so good. Dan once explained, when an American says it's interesting, they might mean they don't like it at all. Such cultural differences often led to amusing misunderstandings, but they also became a colorful part of our relationship. The communication after each misunderstanding made us understand each other's worlds better. 3 months after we got married, I had a career-changing opportunity. A local university was offering a special cross-cultural medicine program for people who had a passion for medical services but no formal medical background. This 2-year program would allow me to become a licensed medical interpreter and cultural liaison, helping international patients receive treatment in the country. You should apply, Dan encouraged me without hesitation. This aligns with your passion and expertise. After a fierce competition, I was successfully admitted. This meant I had to continue working in the finance industry while spending my evenings and weekends studying. The schedule was incredibly tight, but every time I interned at the hospital, helping a non-English speaking patient communicate with a doctor, all the hard work felt worthwhile. You know, a patient from Russia told me, "You're not just translating the doctor's words, you're translating hope." When you're sick in a foreign country, there's nothing more comforting than hearing your native language. Moments like this confirm that this was the right path for me. Dan's career also had new developments. He finally finished his first novel, a story that blended American folklore with modern romance. Unexpectedly, the novel not only became popular in the United States, but was also translated into several languages, including Russian. "Can you believe it?" he said in amazement. "My book will be read in your country." The world is really small. Seeing his joy as a writer, I felt immensely happy. We were both becoming better people with each other's encouragement. My mother's health remained stable. She was no longer just a patient needing care, but had become a part of the community. She joined a local international senior citizens club, participating in various activities with retirees from all over the world. She even started learning English. Although her progress was slow, she enjoyed it. "You know, yesterday I went to the market by myself and bargained with the vendors entirely in English," she told me proudly one day. They all said my accent was cute. Arena and Mike also entered a new stage of life. They were expecting a baby. Hearing this news, my mother and I cried with excitement. "I'm going to be an aunt. I can't believe it," I said. "I'm going to be a grandmother." My mother was overjoyed. Who would have thought I'd have a grandchild in America? During her pregnancy, Arena needed more companionship than ever. We took turns taking care of her, accompanying her to prenatal checkups and preparing baby items. The two child-rearing traditions, American and Belarusian, often clashed in our conversations, bringing laughter and deep thought. In Belarus, we believe pregnant women shouldn't watch horror movies or the baby will be timid, my mother said seriously. In America, some old traditions say a pregnant woman shouldn't use scissors or the baby will have a defect. Mike's mother replied just as seriously. Arena just listened to these tales, smiling and shaking her head. "I think my baby will be the most protected baby, with blessings from both cultures." In the days of waiting for this new life, I often thought about my own future. Dan and I had also discussed having children, but decided to wait another year or two until my medical training was complete. "We have plenty of time," Dan always comforted me. "Achieve your career dream first." His understanding and support made me grateful once again that fate had brought me to his side. 2 months before our wedding anniversary, I received a special surprise. My application was selected for a community health promotion project at a prestigious New York hospital. This was a part-time job, allowing me to use my spare time to engage in medical-related work, reconnecting with the medical dream I had abandoned as a youth. "See?" Dan said happily. Life is full of possibilities. Maybe you can truly revive your medical dream. His words made me think that maybe it really wasn't too late. On our first wedding anniversary, Dan took me to the restaurant by the Hudson River where we had our first real date. As we sat at the same table, everything around us seemed unchanged, but we knew we were no longer the same people. A year ago today, I almost proposed to you here, Dan smiled, reminiscing. Then I was interrupted by a phone call. Fate has its own plans. I held his hand. That accident made our feelings even stronger. After dinner, we walked along the river. The evening breeze gently brushed our faces. The lights of New York reflected on the water like stars falling to earth. If you could go back in time, would you choose differently? Dan suddenly asked. I stopped and looked into his eyes seriously. No, even knowing all the difficulties and uncertainties I would face, I would still choose to come to America, choose to meet you, choose all of this. He held me in his arms and whispered softly in my ear. I'm so lucky. Because of your courage, you came to me. On the way home, I received a text from Arena. She had started having contractions and was on her way to the hospital. We immediately changed course and rushed to the hospital. When we arrived, Mike was waiting anxiously outside the delivery room. My mother was sitting quietly beside him, saying a prayer. How is she? I asked worriedly. The doctor says everything is normal, but it will take some time, Mike replied, his voice trembling with excitement. For the next several hours, we waited anxiously outside the delivery room. Dan bought coffee and sandwiches. My mother kept knitting a baby blanket, a new skill she had recently learned. At 3:17 a.m., the sound of a baby's cry broke the silence of the hospital. Not long after, a nurse came out and announced that it was a healthy baby boy, and both mother and child were safe. When we were allowed into the room, I saw an exhausted but happy Arena holding a tiny baby. She looked up at us, a bright smile on her face. Come meet your nephew, she said softly. Mikhail. We decided on a name that is both Belarusian and has a place in America. As I carefully held this new life, an indescribable sense of emotion welled up in my heart. This tiny life connected two cultures, two histories. It was a new beginning for our family. Welcome to the world, Mikhail, I whispered. You have a special family that spans half the globe, but it's filled with love. At that moment, standing in a New York hospital, holding a Belarusian American baby, I felt a deep sense of completeness. Life sometimes doesn't go as planned, but often it gives you better surprises. Returning home in the early morning, the dawn light streamed through the living room window. Dan and I leaned back on the sofa, enjoying a moment of peace. What are you thinking about? He asked, seeing my pensive look. I'm thinking about the wonders of life, I replied. I came to America to convince Arena not to marry an American man. Now, I'm married to an American man myself. My whole family is here. And I even have a nephew born in America. Dan laughed. Sometimes we think we are making decisions, but actually, the decisions are shaping us. He was right. Years ago, I came to America to stop my sister from getting married. Today, I not only found true love myself, but also created a new identity and mission in this land. From doubt to understanding, from fear to courage, from responsibility to love, my heart had traveled a distance far greater than geography. Thank you. I leaned on Dan's shoulder and said, Thank me for what? He asked, puzzled. Thank you for showing me the possibilities of love. Thank you for encouraging me to pursue my dreams. Thank you for helping me redefine the meaning of home. He gently kissed my forehead. It's my honor. Outside the window, the New York sky was gradually brightening. A new day was about to begin. In this once unfamiliar city, now filled with love and hope, Dan, myself, and our family would continue to write our story, a story of love that crossed cultures, a story of courage and growth, a story of finding a true home.